Ikaro all. We'll make this one very brief, but rise and grind, rise and shine, rise up. Again, another well, I can't say from the shrine. I'm actually traveling right now, but yeah, we'll say by proxy from the shrine session, the Orisha.com. I am Chief Yuya, and just giving you some daily motivation, or more so some daily inspiration. The motivation you have to give yourself. But want to share some information on Egbe. Some of you maybe have heard that term before, but I know a lot of times there's certain terms that are said and thrown around, and sometimes, the more often something is said, the more intimidated people feel about asking about what has actually been said, because it's like a lie almost. You tell one lie and then you have to tell many others to support the original one, and by then you've created such a tangled web that you can't, you might feel some type of way about letting the person know I was lying about the very first thing. I find similar in this community where sometimes individuals will hear certain phrases or certain ideas, not really have an understanding of what's being said, and be too afraid to say, I don't understand, and will let too much time go. And I've noticed that with Egbe and a few other ones, because some people are under the conception that Egbe are actually Orisha. And I've heard that mentioned a lot of times. And, I'm not always big on correcting people. Some people are not, they're not strong enough for correction. You have to slowly try to guide them, or just, will that eventually they'll find their own way. But, yeah, in any event, so Egbe, right? And you cannot separate the idea of Alaragbo or Ilegbe. These are positions within the Egbe. But your Egbe is your, it kind of signifies and it speaks about the life that we all have before coming to Earth, or the Earth's surface, right? So very similar to, some of you may be familiar with the laws of correspondence, right? And the laws of correspondence dictates as above, so below, and then we can also say as within, so without. As seen, there's going to be an unseen. So there's always this fifth dimensional counterpart or correspondence to what it is that we're experiencing or seeing in the third dimension, right? So Egbe speaks to that. Your Egbe is your community that you enjoyed, or your peers that you function and enjoyed before traveling here, right? So there's a saying that we have in the Ifa community, is that if one does not have Egbe, one cannot live on Earth. So basically it's saying that if you do not have your counterparts in the ethers, and you have not made contact and connection with them, then it's pretty much impossible for you to survive here on the planet, because, again, there's a law of correspondence. As we individually have an Ipori, or we have a doppelganger, or a spiritual double, or a heavenly double, if you will, you do not originate here on the planet, but rather you are a manifestation of a reflection of what exists in an unseen and higher place, or inner place, right? So like anything else, like a popcorn kernel popping out, there's a seed and there's a kernel of existence that unfolds, right? And sometimes we look at the unfolding, or we look at the blossomed lotus flower, and we say, look at the beauty of all existence. And what you're looking at is not necessarily the beauty of all existence, but you're looking at the gorgeousness, or the attractiveness of the manifestation of existence, in different ways that existence will and can manifest itself. Okay, so with your Egbe, sometimes you'll hear me use a term in different segments and stuff, where you hear me say things like astral mates. There are certain people that you travel through your existence with, or you travel with your journey through with, as astral soulmates. Well, your Egbe would be similar, except again, it's your community that not necessarily, they support you, but not just support you, but the community that you belong to in the other place. So another way to look at it is, let's say if you're from another place, let's say you're from the Philippines, and you travel to the U.S. or you travel to Canada or London to live, and you're functioning and you're moving where you're at, in this new location, in this new place. However, there's an acknowledgement that I have a whole community, I have a whole lineage, I have a whole genealogy that's connected with the Philippines, you see. So in that instance, now we're dealing with the idea of having not only a home, but an entire peer group that exists somewhere else. And that peer group may more accurately reflect who and what I am in the world. They may be able to do that with greater accuracy. And it's important that, just like, you might be living somewhere and someone will ask you, hey, when's the last time you called your grandmother? When's the last time you called your uncle? When's the last time you called your parents? When's the last time you connected to your Egbe? Are you connecting to the individuals, the source and the values of spirit and quality that keep you who you are, that keep you real? Or are you getting lost in the fact of thinking now you're Canadian, or thinking now you're American, or thinking now that you're a subject of Great Britain, with and forgetting that, no, I originate in the Philippines, and my people are I'm a Filipino, I'm a Filipino, right? So the Egbe, it's your community, your originating community, and of course there's more to it. Some people speak about Egbe Orun, which is really what we're speaking about. I should have clarified that in the beginning. Because you have your Egbe, which is your spiritual community. Sometimes that can be like even physical people, your support group here. But then you have your Egbe Orun. Orun being our word for sky, sun, heaven, and a few other things. But that Egbe Orun is that invisible or unseen or spiritual originating community that exists in Orun, or in heaven, right? And then a lot of times you have Egbe Iyalode or Iyalode Egbe Orun, which is, Iyalode is the mother of outside, but the mother of outside in heaven, right? So she is considered to be like the, kind of like how you have Iyami Osoronga, who is the head of the Aj. You have Iyalode Orun, or Iyalode Egbe Iyalode, who is the leader or the head of the Egbe. Because within the Egbe, you have different positions. It's like a whole community, so you have leaders and you have people who are assigned to do certain things. And often it's noted that the Egbe will consist of a lot of Abiku. And the Abiku are youth who have transitioned from this form of life very early on. So maybe those who have transitioned as infants, before 2 years old, 3 years old, 4 years old, 5 years old, but those youth who have transitioned at a young stage, and it is often said is because those are the Egbe of certain individuals who make a pact to come to this place, to come to this realm, to perform a certain thing, and then to go back. So one of the things is always acknowledged with your Egbe Orun is that often there's a agreement, or there's pacts that are made before you come to the surface. And when you come down, or come up, or come out, depending on how you would like to look at it, because the directional is, it's not really about a direction that we would process with this. But in any event, when you come out into this existence and into this world, often there's promises that you may have made to your Egbe, certain things that you're going to perform, or maybe even for each other, because remember, there's the law of correspondence. So those who are in your spiritual Egbe also will have an earthly manifestation, right? So you may say, hey, when I get down, or get out, or get up, I'm going to be your father. I'm going to be your 4th grade teacher. I'm going to be someone who gives you some guidance, it gives you some advice. I may be a child that just does something kind for you. That could be an Abiko. They do something kind, it's time to go. Or they ask you a significant question, and then it's time for them to transition. Sometimes we have very profound relationships with elders, and it's hard for people to understand what's going on there. Sometimes we have very profound relationships with younger people or just people in general, and there's a kind of electricity between ourselves and that person, regardless of title. It's more so about the role that we play to one another, and sometimes there's an undeniable and maybe unexplainable electricity, and that person often is a part of your Egbe, right? And I know, of course, unless you're coming up in traditions like this, because that concept of Egbe Orun exists in other traditions, indigenous traditions, but unless you're coming up with that type of in that type of environment, it may be difficult to understand those feelings. You may have those feelings towards someone and that experience, and depending on the type of culture that you grew up in, it may be really misconstrued, as to what's actually going on here. What am I feeling here? What are we both acknowledging here? And you may not totally understand it. So it's good to acknowledge and know that, like we say, without Egbe Orun, you cannot live on earth. So without that tying and that linkage and that correspondence, there is no earthly life. So without the unseen, there is no seen. That's the bottom line. And it's a correspondence because the seen also feeds the unseen, while the unseen directs and motivates the seen. You see, so there's a back and forth interplay in that sense. So it's really good to take some time, just like you would call home and speak to your relatives and catch up on what everyone's doing. You also want to create that experience with the Egbe. And typically with Egbe, we do establish shrines. We do establish altars to our Egbe. There are also pots that I make, or other priests like myself may make for Egbe, things like that. So it's an important part of your spiritual journey. And understand, again, Egbe are not ancestors and they're not Orisha. It's a different vibration. All right. So I want to reiterate that. A lot of times people think that all we have in this tradition are Orisha and Olodumare. Orisha, Olodumare, and ancestors. And of course your ancestors are not linked to any tradition per se. Truth is, neither are the Orisha, but that's a whole nother conversation that maybe we can build our intelligence up to one day without a whole lot of banter. All right. So that has been your Orisha motivation and understanding, and your Yoruba collection of thoughts for the day. And definitely use it. Travel safe. Just be well, man. I know it's kind of, for those of us in the Northeast, it's kind of cold right now. It's a little snow coming down, which you may or may not be able to see in the background. And as usual, the Babalao Chief Yuya is getting ready to travel and make some moves. All right. So we'll build in the forward. Odabo.